1958. New York City, a booming metropolis full of energy and opportunity.
It's gone. It's a home run.
My grandparents chose New York City as their home in the early 1900s, immigrating from Russia and Austria via Ellis Island. My parents, aunts, and uncles were first-generation Americans who lived through the hardships of the Great Depression and World War II. Even with the threat of communism and nuclear devastation lurking on the horizon, Americans like my parents were optimistic about the future. Strong values and beliefs were passed down to all of us from my grandparents. Family was most important, and making a better life for your children was a prime objective. My dad and uncles worked long, hard days. My mom, like my aunts, worked at home keeping house and raising the kids. With all the pressures put on them from society, responsibilities of work and family, they needed to find a way to relax. So it wasn't surprising that my relatives formed the Beer and Pepper Club, a Saturday evening gathering at one of my aunts and uncle's house without the kids. It was a fun way to blow off steam and decompress from society's pressures.
We really had fun.
We had a good time for 25 years.
My dad was Stanley Watsky. Most of you know him as Sonny. My mom was Ida Watsky.
My father got his nickname from his brother Sonny, who couldn't say Harold and said Heba, and from that it became Hebby. Mom always told the story that in the nursery she was blowing bubbles and her grandfather came to visit and he said bubbla bubbla and bubbles stuck. My parents always rearranged the house so everyone could fit in the little room and able to eat all the wonderful food that they served.
We sent out postcards to all the cousins. I must have sent out 14 or 15 postcards, and we got 8 responses. And then we took in Minnie and Dorothy and Sylvia and Uncle Johnny's.
Sylvia was my dad's younger sister, a fun, talented, and warm-hearted person.
So we were 10 couples. The 2 cousins, after one meeting, they decided they don't want to be forced to see family every month. So they went about their business.
Marilyn and Stuart, and then Barbara and Ronnie. They were the youngest one. And they had to be initiated by High Watsky.
I think we're the only people who had to have an indoctrination.
Into the Beer and Pepper Club.
We wanted to do something big to initiate it.
They would have these little ceremonies.
We had, I think, a keg of beer. They would cut up peppers, red hot peppers, and they had to eat the red hot pepper and drink the beer at the same time.
Well, that was fun.
And they had them down on the floor on their knees taking an oath.
We thought we'd tease them up a little bit.
They made me drink a lot of beer and crawling under people's legs, smacking me on the behind.
It was all in fun and we all laughed about it.
Was it fun for them? No, it wasn't fun for them.
That's the original Cousins Club plaque. It originated as the Morris Swatsky Family Circle and then morphed into the Beer and Pepper Club, the Cousins Club and the Beer and Pepper Club.
The Cousins Club always got together, from what I remember, every month.
And they used to take turns going to each other's homes.
It was good to get together with very close family. There would be a theme for the party. At the meeting before the costume party, we would discuss what the theme would be.
My parents were pretty theatrical. It was nothing for them to be dressing up.
People took it very seriously.
But what on those costumes?
It was like professional costumes they always made. They would start, I think, in August, and they would come up with these outrageous costumes.
Whatever the theme was, they became those characters.
Beatniks were big things and all that stuff was beatniks.
High Watsky was a rip.
He was a good guy. He was a lot of fun.
Of course, Eddie was the instigator for everything. My brother had also instigated a little bit, and so did Sonny, so we really had a good time. It was a Halloween costume party. I lived on the 3rd floor.
John and Sylvia came. He was dressed as a gangster with a machine gun, and she was dressed as his mom, with his long dress and the strings of beads and jewelry.
And instead of ringing the bell on the 3rd floor, they got off at the 2nd floor.
They walked right into somebody else's house.
And Uncle Johnny stood there with a gun in his hand.
And scared the hell out of him.
At their get-togethers, I know I always wanted to see what was going on.
If they were in our house, we could hang out for a little bit and then kind of usher us off.
We always had to go into the bedroom, to be sheltered from what they were doing.
Because they were always drinking and cursing.
I couldn't believe it. My aunts and uncles were cursing. What a ridiculous memory that I have in my mind, that these women and men were cursing.
We drank.
Everybody drank. I don't know how many liquor bottles we drank.
Drinking is an ingrained aspect of American life. What is considered heavy drinking today was more acceptable in the mid-20th century.
They weren't shy on drinking their scotch. Bottles and bottles of scotch disappeared.
People were going to Brooklyn, Bronx, Laurelton. They were going all over the place, and they were plastered.
I never drank so much in my life.
Everybody smoked cigarettes.
They thought it was cool, and they all smoked when they were young teenagers.
Except for my Uncle Eddie, who used to choke us out with the cigars and pipe.
Back then, it was kind of induced into them that they should smoke, and they did.
Here, have one of mine.
Newport smokes fresher.
Encouraged daily by relentless advertising, movie star and celebrity endorsements, and even recommendations from doctors, it seemed like everybody smoked back then, and people smoked everywhere.
I don't see why everybody doesn't smoke Rollins.
At work, in restaurants, movie theaters, and even on airplanes.
It was all legal. We didn't smoke marijuana. We would fill up 4 ashtrays with cigarette butts. And we would have to throw out the cigarette butts at least 4 times in one evening.
I know they had a good time because none of them were in any shape, I guess, to clean up everything by the morning.
Boy, they had a lot of fun then, didn't they?
Now, interestingly, the person most responsible for bringing all the cousins together never actually attended a Beer and Pepper Club meeting. That man is my grandfather, Benjamin Watsky, fondly known all his life as Goggy. The story is told that my brother Gary, the first of the grandchildren, couldn't say grandpa.
It came out Gaga. And from Gaga, it became Goggy, and every one of the children called him Goggy.
By the time we came along, almost 10 years later, he was Goggy. Goggy arrived in America in 1914 at the age of 18. He never spoke about where he was born. When I asked him, all he ever said was, "You don't want to know. You have it so much better here." As it turns out, Goggy was born in Shtetl, a village named Horskany in Russia, in the area known as the Pale of Settlement. The Pale was created to keep Jews away from Russian society. Russian government restrictions and prejudice gave rise to state-sponsored pogroms. The massacre of innocent people was always a threat. My grandfather, able to book transit, left his home to join his father, who was already in America. Goggy's father's name was Moishe, Morris Watsky.
His father was a nice man, and he had a horse and buggy, and he sold ice.
Beginning a new life in America, Goggy never looked back. My underlying memory of Goggy was that he was a proud man.
He had plenty to be proud of. And 4 kids that grew up to have successful lives.
He was my father. He was always very good to me. I was the youngest one of 4. Could do no wrong.
Gagi was proud of his grandchildren. And his great-grandchildren.
He got such a kick out of the kids.
And proud of his children, our parents, and the life they were able to make for their families. He was proud of this country. I think he really saw this country as a great opportunity, and I think he took full advantage of that opportunity. He was the patriarch of the family.
His word was the N word. Once that was the decision, that was the decision.
When he said jump, you asked how high.
If he said it, that's the way it had to be.
He was somewhat determined. When he thought he was right, he was definitely right.
Grandfather was from the old. He was the Tsar and the Emperor, and he could do everything and anything that he didn't do.
He was a tough cookie.
I think from where he came from, he needed that inner strength and belief in himself to make it. And to travel from where he traveled from, to come to America and to build the life that he built, I think he needed that inside him.
At that time, the man of the house was the man of the house.
The woman stayed at home and her place was in the home.
The man ran the household.
Mr. Norton, today's question is, in your house, who is the boss, you or your wife?
I'll be very happy to answer that question. In my household, I am the boss of the household. I think that any man that is afraid of his wife is not a man. And I can't stress this point too strongly, that a husband is the boss.
Yes?
Don't quote me, because if my wife reads that, she'll kill me.
Very stern man.
When somebody was ready to go home and he didn't want to let you go, you weren't going.
Well, that was it. You know, the final word was his.
I don't think he was very nice.
I don't remember him being too much of a disciplinarian.
And he was very caring. You came to him, he would take good care of you. Couldn't do enough. Couldn't do enough.
He believed in family. He had that virtue of family being important. It was really both Gagi and Nana.
Nana was just a sweetheart.
Their love is something that made us all pretty strong and solid and gave us a great role model.
My grandmother, Yetta Watzke, was born Yetta Tavel in 1901 in Lemberg, Austria, today known as Lviv, Ukraine.
They knew each other as kids on the same building. It was just a lifelong partnership. Nana was exceptionally warm and very, very intelligent. She was Gagi's true partner.
They always shared the same bed.
He would put his arm around her, and he loved to see my mother all dressed up. He liked her to have a lot of clothes, and sometimes I caught them kissing.
She was the best wife in the whole world. Whatever he did was good. Whenever I think of them, I see them, the two little cake toppers holding hands.
She and my father loved each other.
That was a great relationship. That's the kind of relationship that we aspire to.
Live together peacefully, but work together.
He and Aunt Yetta were the bricks that the building was made of. They kept the family together.
You and I get our creativity from him, but Nana gives us that sense of business and holding things together.
I was going to meet Nana and Gagi for the first time, and I'm finding myself alone in this room with Gagi. Yeah, I'm trying to think of something to say, and the icebreaker that pops into my head. So Gagi, tell me, how's business? And that man just began to talk and talk and talk. It's like he was dying to tell somebody about how business was.
My grandparents had an interior decorating store
on Rutland Road
in what's called East New York.
1108 Rutland Road.
Over by the train station.
On the corner was Tony Minucci, the barber, and his brother-in-law had the shoe repair. Then there was the liquor store, and after the liquor store was Abe's Television. And after Abe's Television was Watsky Interior Decorator. And then there was the Chase Manhattan Bank. And after that was Pilevsky, the grocery store. And then there was Itzik, the fruit store. And then at the end of the block was an appetizing store and a Chinese laundry.
The store was like a wonderland.
It was a place you could always go to and felt at home.
We walked over every day and sat a little bit with this one, sat a little bit with that one.
My father had a decorator's shop.
They manufactured and sold draperies, slipcovers, and bedspreads.
He produced his own product in the back of the store.
And even upholstered chairs.
He ran a good business. He made a good living.
He had 4 sewing machines and 3 operators.
He would eat breakfast and go downstairs at 7 o'clock in the morning, way before the store opened. He always had something to finish downstairs.
He did the slipcover cutting. My brother did the drapery cutting. And the 4 operators did the sewing. There was one operator there whose name was Marie Vuno.
She was a lovely lady.
Marie used to sew bedspreads and draperies. Grandma never sewed. My mother was a saleswoman and she was a bookkeeper.
She was the brains behind my father.
Nana ran the business while Gagi was able to have the room to create, and that's what gave them that magic.
That was their first business. Prior to that, Gagi worked for a slipcover manufacturer.
We were able to run around.
Tutu fights.
Tutus were the empty rolls from the material.
It had to be about 3 feet, 5 feet, maybe 6 feet sometime.
These big tubes that they used to wrap the fabric around.
When the rolls were empty, we would grab them before they threw them out.
And use them as swords, guns.
They were our nunchucks.
They would come in big boxes, and the boxes became forts.
We used to do mock battle.
We could spend hours just banging each other around.
I always ended up crying one way or another.
Your grandfather used to play his horn through it, you know? Do-do-do-do.
When my dad opened up the store, we lived behind the store. There was one room behind the shop, and then an apartment became available upstairs.
Over Abe's radio and TV shop.
When you came up the steps, there was like a little hallway, and there was a bathroom there.
It was like a railroad track.
There were 2 bathrooms. One bathroom was ever used.
And then the kitchen.
Another bathroom.
A bedroom, and then the big room where we used to always have Passover.
When we had a lot of people, we moved the beds away. And my father had a big board. And we put it on the wooden horses. And we were able to have dinner for the whole family in the back bedroom.
We were all around. God forbid if you had to go to the bathroom, you could not get up.
The other way, if you went to the right, was the living room, and then their bedroom overlooked Rutland Road.
My great-grandmother, Gagi's mom, also lived there.
Babsina was her name.
She baked cakes and challis.
She used to wash her hands 100 times a day. She used to complain. She didn't like that the children made so much noise. She would fight with my Zadie.
My grandmother's dad lived there too.
I loved my Zadie. His name was Herman Tavel. He was very, very kind. He used to walk down Sutter Avenue and go to the fruit stores to see if there's things on sale, and he'd bring it home to my mother. and there was a fresh chicken market on Sutter Avenue, and he would go there and get the fresh chicken.
Gaggy and Grandma let us do anything we wanted in their house. Their house was really kind of a magical place.
I remember Nana having live fish in the bathtub for making gefilte fish.
Outside their kitchen window was a little porch.
Like a little walkway on the roof.
Between the two buildings.
They can go from one window to the other window. Like a courtyard.
I used to climb out the window and play out on that roof.
She went on the little roof. You couldn't get hurt there. My grandfather made wine on that roof. He had a big barrel where he squashed the grapes. He didn't stand on it like Lucy did, but I think he banged it with something and he would squash it up. When it was the Jewish holidays, my mother gave him the live fish that was in the bathtub, and he would chop up the fish, the gefilte fish, for Passover.
Gaggy kept the Jewish traditions and the culture.
Every Seder was in your grandmother's house.
He loved it when we had Passover. We would all have a Haggadah.
The Haggadah is a text read at Passover that tells the story of the biblical Exodus and God bringing the Israelites out of slavery.
It was very formal. They read through the entire Haggadah.
Everybody had to read.
Do a verse at least.
A law.
We never finished reading the whole book.
We're always sneaking food.
And I remember actually trying to grab a pickle and getting into trouble.
Let us eat already, please.
Made a pickle.
He would get angry when the kids made noise.
And he said shush every few minutes.
We had to come to temple, and it was an Orthodox temple.
It was something that we didn't have a choice on.
He made sure we went. He bought our tickets, and we were going.
You know, they weren't allowed to drive during the holiday. We had to walk underneath the elevated L.
Your father, who wasn't so happy about it, he'd go to shul too. And Heavy and Sonny, and my mother would go with them.
Your father and mother, Heavy and Bubs, Greedy and Sam, would make the walk along Loretta Road to our house, pick us up, and we all walked to the synagogue.
On East 95th Street.
We had to sit there, you know, during the services with our nice dress clothes on, and me kicking my brother and my brother kicking me.
Again, I would go home crying that day.
Gaggy being Gaggy was persistent and held us together long enough to attend many family bar mitzvahs.
My bar mitzvah was awesome.
Like my cousins, I followed in the family tradition.
Today you are a man.
You're pretty much king for the day.
I was nervous.
My knees were knocking.
I thought I was going to pass out.
I was looking forward to the money.
After what seemed like an eternity, I was called up to present to everybody.
We had both sides of the family come in. We had friends from the neighborhood. We had the Cousins Club. The Cousins Club knew how to party. A little alcohol, food, music, and celebrations.
I was so relieved to be done.
I was proud of my achievement, as was my family that shared in my celebration.
I was grateful and lucky and thankful. It was a great day. I was so happy.
He'd drink hot water for breakfast. He would take his toast and burn it on purpose.
He'd scrape off the burnings so the bread would have some flavor to it.
He played the violin when he was in Russia.
He was a serious musician. When he came here, the only things he could play were weddings and bar mitzvahs.
He was very creative.
Gaggy invented a number of things.
He had a patent for a styrofoam mattress
that they're now selling.
Tempur-Pedics.
I slept on that a couple of times. It wasn't the most comfortable thing.
He had a patent on
Toilet seat cover.
A sanitary toilet seat cover.
He should have made $1 million because it eventually became kind of standard.
He never did anything with it.
Gagi could have been the toilet paper king.
It was something that he invented so women can't lose their pocketbook.
But it's all part of who Gagi was. He was always thinking and always coming up with ideas.
He really was a very bright man.
I believe that my grandfather was an extremely wealthy man.
He always made a good living. He did. They always went to the Catskills in the summer. And they went to Florida when nobody was going to Florida yet.
He owned an entire block, and it was bought out eventually to make a McDonald's.
Gagi and Grandma were one of the first to have a black and white television. And then they bought a color television.
They bought a color TV the very first year it came on to the market.
And we used to go there Sunday nights and watch Wonderful World of Color, Walt Disney World.
He was the only one in the family that had a car. And everybody, the Taggles, I don't know how we all got in there.
You have to understand, my parents never had a car. So wherever we would go, they would drive.
Good driver at one time. When he got older, he wasn't such a good driver.
It was his road. He learned how to drive with the clutch. So he drove with 2 feet all the time.
He used to pommel that brake. Boy, that was boom.
He could be in the left lane, and if his exit's coming up, he wouldn't care if there were 2 cars in the middle lane and the right lane. He would go over the 2 lanes, get off, and then turn his right blinker on.
Like Mr. McGill.
He was a bad driver.
But he was only moving 20 miles an hour. It was the 10 cars behind him that got into the accident.
Don't hurry, man.
He would just drive off.
Yeah, like this.
Every time he used to have to put his blue car into the parking lot, he would hit the same exact spot on the steps in front of him, which of course eventually dented the car in that one particular area. And that's how he knew he was going right into the parking spot the right way.
He was the worst.
I thought he was a wonderful driver. What did I know? I'm a kid.
Unlike the Beer and Pepper Club's adult activities, the Cousins Club gatherings like our picnics were much more family-focused.
We couldn't wait to go to those picnics.
Brought everybody together.
One of the families would have to run out very early in the morning and try to gather up the different tables because we had a large group that would always get together.
20, 30, maybe 40 people.
We used to have it at Alley Pond Park and Cunningham Park. We would take over half of the picnic areas and people weren't always happy about it. Then it moved to Flushing Meadow Park.
Which is where the World's Fair was?
The last couple of them were in Eisenhower Park. Sue and I and Marilyn and Barbara would get there early, pull the tables together, and thank God the weather always worked out.
There were even a few times we traveled upstate to picnic.
Once or twice we went up to Bear Mountain.
We'd all meet at a service station on the Hutchinson or Bronx River Parkway and caravan upstate to the park together.
And that was a long schlep.
But to us kids, an adventure well worth the drive.
I remember the big banner, the Beer and Pepper Club banner, hung between the trees.
It was just one big day of eating, playing, and frolicking in the park.
Everybody brought their own food, and we all had our own table. You basically walked to anyone's grill if there was a hamburger or a hot dog there or a piece of chicken.
I remember we had one cooler. It was plaid, it was round, and it held nothing. You put the ice in it, and you put the hot dogs in it, and that was the end of it.
It was something that went from breakfast all the way to dinner.
But my Aunt Eleanor, boy, she knew how to pack a picnic. She always had everything.
To me, it was about the food.
Then the watermelon, of course, was the best part.
Gagi would bring a watermelon.
That was like the theme of it.
We would carve our initials in the watermelon. Gagi would give a speech.
That was a tradition that went on for years and years and years.
Yeah, we all had T-shirts that had our names on it.
Cousin Ronald. Yeah. Just brought it back to me. Cousin Barbara, Cousin Ronald.
I remember a picture where Cousin Bubbles ran after Sammy because he was wearing a toupee and she didn't want him to have it. She liked him better without it.
You were allowed to play freely.
We used to run around like lunatics. I was so dirty all the time.
The egg toss was always a big thing.
You had to kind of catch it, not hard boiled.
And balloon tosses, water balloons.
Some of us played ball.
I remember the watermelon spitting pit contests.
I remember always being filthy at the end of the day.
One of the picnics, Craig and Randy and Jay and Freddie and Terry were getting a little bit wild. So my brother-in-law Eddie got an idea, let's tie him to a tree. And we tied them all up around a tree. And
I can see him doing that, but I don't remember that.
That was before children snitched on their parents.
If we did that now, we'd probably walk away with handcuffs on us.
Just the schmoozing itself. It was so good to be together.
All of us got along so well.
Nobody ever fought about anything.
They were more than cousins, they were friends.
It was always a fun adventure driving up to the Catskill Mountains with the Cousins Club.
We went one weekend to Hosanna Lodge.
You need to remember that in those days we didn't have any air conditioning. So it was a great relief to get out of the sweltering summer heat of the city and travel upstate. Of course, there were those times when us kids weren't invited to those wild beer and pepper club weekends upstate at some Catskill hotel.
Neverly, Kutch's, Concord.
In those days, there was no super highway to get up there. It was a good 3-hour trip.
You didn't take the children?
No. They were grown up. We left them home. Before the dinner, we'd all have a couple of drinks. By the time they got to eat dinner, most of them were soused already and everybody was having a good time. But we went to the show and there was a woman in the show that had big boobs, and Eddie, being a little bit on the drunk side, moved closer with his chair so he could see her better. And then all of a sudden Eddie got up, took his chair and put it on the stage. And the woman that was entertaining, she joined in with the fun with him, and I think Elmo didn't talk to him for the rest of the weekend.
Thanksgiving was always a special time for our family to get together.
They went with ladders early in the morning to go watch the parade. And we would hang around, we would put together a Thanksgiving dinner, everybody. Ida would come over, Bubbles would come over.
Sitting atop the ladders from Goggy's store, we had a great view.
And it wasn't all that much fun to be out there freezing.
When the men came back from New York freezing, we had dinner ready.
Every Thanksgiving, I think back to that and say, man, I'm glad to be sitting inside here watching it on TV.
I wanna hold your hand. President Kennedy died. I have a dream. Shot to death.
It was a time of national mourning and hope and change. And after 34 years, Goggy and Grandma moved the store from Rutland Road in East New York, Brooklyn, to Northern Boulevard in Flushing, Queens.
I think it was around 1963, 64.
They bought a co-op in Kew Gardens on 79th Avenue and 150th Street.
When my mom and dad moved to 79th Avenue, we would still get together for the holidays.
We were one big family.
I feel we were very blessed to have the family that we did.
Gagi and Grandma oversaw many family gatherings.
Growing up in New York, we had all our family dinners together with all of our cousins, and we had a large group. Everybody got together for all of the holidays.
Cousins Club was always big, like at a wedding or a bar mitzvah. They always did the horror. Someone had to get up on that chair, and no matter who it was, they always honored the people who would throw in the party.
I remember vividly there was a song that they used to play at all of the bar mitzvahs and weddings we went to, and
The Bridge on the River Kwai.
The movie came out, and for some reason they adopted that song. Da 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 da. It became our theme song. They asked the band to play it, and we'd march around.
we would all line up.
That's right. And we would march like a bunch of Michigans.
And then everybody else would join us.
Celebrating and showing appreciation for what was going on.
Except that one affair.
Edna and Nat's daughter's wedding, they didn't like us doing it.
We all got up with it, and they took offense.
So he told the band, if they played Bridge on River Kwai, he would not pay them. When we asked, whoever did ask, the band to play so we could march around, and they said they wouldn't do it.
We were all very angry and we wanted to go home.
To this day, I don't know why, but they did. They took offense and we didn't do it.
I always felt kind of uncomfortable about that. Of course, I had nothing against my cousins. They kind of separated themselves, and that's what happens in families, unfortunately.
In 1984, the year before Gagi died, Steve Jobs introduced the Apple personal computer, technology that has radically changed our lives, a crowning completion to the timeline of historical, cultural, scientific, and technological change that Gagi witnessed in his 89 years of life.
We're losing no time in getting the government's vast work relief program underway.
The world was being watched closely by intelligences greater than man.
And thus to contribute to assure the peace of Europe.
December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
America is today the strongest, the most influential, and most productive nation in the world.
Up in the sky, it's a bird. It's a plane. It's Superman.
Good night and good luck. Brooklyn wins at first World's Championship.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
The greatest danger of all would be to do nothing.
So, Ricky!
President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard.
That stain of bloodshed that has spread across our land.
I have a dream.
And have 3 days of fun and music.
Truly amazing. You're a whole city.
Mets are the world champions. The New York Jets are the world champions.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
I'm not a crook.
Significant achievement in the cause of peace.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. Buckle up for safety.
Gagi passed away in 1985, at the age of 89, followed 2 years later by Grandma, who was 84 years old.
Gagi kept us all a lot closer.
When Gagi was alive, he was the anchor to keep everybody together.
He truly was the head of the family.
And when he passed on, I think the family broke apart a little bit. They didn't get together on large groups anymore. They didn't get together at the holidays as much.
Grandma and Grandpa, before I went to California, they called me up on the phone, invited me to their house for lunch. They never did that. That was like the first time. And I went for lunch and Grandma made chicken soup. And Gagi sat me down and asked me, why do you have to go so far away from the family?
We're actually the first group of the Watsky family to break away from New York City.
My dad said, Dad, I want to move my family down to Florida where the air is clean and everything's clean. And Gagi said to my dad, sure, leave the family here to breathe the dirty air. And my dad laughed and said, well, you can come with us. He said, no, I'm going to stay here with the family.
Gagi didn't want us to move to Florida.
You know, when Gagi said that to me, I didn't understand.
Your mother and father moved to Florida. Sonny and Ida had already moved to Florida. Hebby had a place up in the country. I didn't move until 1999, and that's when it broke up.
I personally think that anybody that's married 50 years deserves a serious celebration.
In 1992, the original siblings gathered together in Florida to celebrate my mom and dad's 50th wedding anniversary.
It was the best night of their life.
The Jim Jam jump is a jumping jive, makes you 10 feet tall and you 4 feet 5.
I rented a limo at the last minute, which they had never been in a limo. They love that. I wanted to ride like Cinderella. I wanted Mom to be Cinderella that day.
Jumping jive makes you 10 feet tall when you 4 feet 5. And that's it, Sylvia drum, but
It's very beautiful and very nice and very appropriate.
Yeah, this is really nice. They ought to be kissing the bride.
My entire life growing up, I was constantly reminded. I remember when Sarah was chasing Adam around on the boat, wanting to dance with him. Somebody towards the end of the cruise forced him to dance with me. Thank you to whoever that was.
I can probably remember when they first met, but it's been a long, long friendship.
I adore them. Why am I here if otherwise?
It's our pleasure coming, believe me.
Eddie, I love you very much, and I am so thrilled to be here.
the 75th.
And they should be as happy as they are today.
The next 50 we celebrate.
The only boyfriend I remember your mother having was your father. She met him up in the country, and that was it. She was a one-man woman.
Mom and Dad, it was the time of their life. Here's to you two.
Mom. We appreciate our children's effort and all you nice people who came to enjoy our enjoyment.
When the Cousins Club broke up, Mom was really sad because she always used to say, oh, we used to have so much fun, And she didn't understand that.
We were more concerned, I think, with our own little group instead of a family group.
I think my children are missing out on an awful lot because everybody is all over the country.
Family never used to be more than, a couple of minutes away from each other.
They were definitely more family-oriented back then than we are today because we're all separated because it's more a global world today.
Coming together at Grandma's house, the cousins running around, and it was so important. Even the chaos of all the mothers screaming and yelling and the uncles getting drunk and the women getting nervous. It was just, I love that chaos and I miss that. My children didn't know their cousins because we were so far away.
They're in Florida, they're in California.
The family gatherings got less and less.
Now everything it's my family.
And eventually they went away, which was very, very unfortunate.
We got really personal with all the aunts and uncles because we were the only ones that were living down in Florida full time. In the early days, there could have been 25 people at our house between all the aunts and uncles. Today we have a holiday and maybe it includes Aunt Renee and Marvin, maybe it includes Freddie. Slowly but surely, one by one, people are going. So, you miss Uncle Eddie at a meal, and then you miss Uncle Sam at a meal, and then before you know it, you miss Aunt Bubbles at a meal, and then before you know it, you miss Aunt Eleanor at a meal, and then you miss Stanley at a meal, and my mother-in-law, Ida. Every holiday that comes up now, Robin and I look at each other and it's like, wow, where did they all go?
I miss all my cousins, all his cousins. They were really Stuart's cousins. I just married in and I felt like each and every one was my cousin.
What I miss most about the family is that when we were together, you didn't have to put on any airs.
It's that family connection, that feeling that you're connected through blood.
They accepted you for who you were.
The Cousins Club was a big, happy family.
We always had just such a great time. I'm getting tears thinking about it.
I've always felt the warmth marrying into it.
I just miss all those times. I miss Gagi amazingly. I miss Nana.
Look at me, I'm crying. I'm such a whoosh.
Unfortunately, Reenie's are the last survivor of the four cousins.
If you put the Cousins Club together now, who have you got? You got Stuart and Marilyn, Barbara and Ronnie, and me.
I didn't realize what Gabi was saying to me 50 years ago. How important family really is.
So, with the original siblings living in Florida, and most of the family spread out around the United States, we didn't have a Cousins Club picnic for many years. Working with cousin Beth Tavel, we reserved a picnic spot in Eisenhower Park in the summer of 2009.
When we moved to Florida, we kind of lost touch with the Cousins Club group. But I went back a few years ago and it picked right up.
It was a beautiful day, a little breezy, sunny.
It was like going back 20 years. Like the time had never passed.
There were a bunch of people that I knew, but there were more people that I didn't know.
I got to meet extended family that I had heard stories about but never actually met.
I had Lily there, which is Jamie's daughter. She played the bongos with Craig.
So fabulous to everybody get together like we had never been apart.
And it was nice because, you know, they were from 8 to 80, blind, crippled, and crazy. Everybody was there.
The older people weren't there anymore, but the next generation of older people were sitting around playing cards.
I remember going from like table to table, and some tables I didn't know who anyone was, and so that was really cool to get to meet lots of my cousins that I hadn't met already. To be around everybody I thought was really special, something that I had never had before in my life.
I do remember winning the egg toss. That was a great moment in my life. We did our watermelon ceremony.
All right, Mr. Heavy. All right, Harold Watsky will make the speech.
Yeah, who's Harold?
That's a whole other story.
On behalf of the original cousins, I want to thank everybody here for coming because I thought it was the most wonderful thing I've ever heard of. It wound up being one of the most wonderful days of my life.
At the end of the day, I felt really warm and fuzzy to be around all these people that are my family.
It was just nice to know that you're still part of something.
I was really upset to miss the last family reunion. I haven't seen family members in a really long time. But yet, I see that younger generation are able to maintain relationships. And maybe there's a way that through Zoom or digital technology, the ability to maintain the relation to the family can continue to grow.
In the early 1990s, my mom and dad and I took the ferry over to Ellis Island to see the commemorative wall that was created to honor the early immigrants who came to America. Among the honored, my grandparents and my great-grandparents. In a way, it was like bringing things full circle. What a wonderful story about family that might never have happened if my grandparents had not taken the chance of finding a better life elsewhere. These are my grandparents on my father's side, Max and Rose Katz. From what I understand, my great-grandfather went to live with a family named Katz to avoid being drafted into the Russian army. My family name is actually Avedon. But that's a story for another day.
It was so funny. The way people came, they really got into it.